I'm Jake Sanderson.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are listening to the Postcast, presented by the Locked On Senators podcast and our friends at the Glebe Central Pub. Make sure to check out the Glebe Central Pub at 779 Bank Street. Go to where the vibes are free. That is the GCP. And when this ridiculous marathon road trip is over, the GCP will be there for you for the Send Shuttle round trip to and from the CTC for just $17. I'm Ross Levitan alongside Lalime's Martian and Jack Richardson, covering a disappointing 4-0 loss by the Ottawa Senators in St. Louis. And you know the flu's going through the room, and our Brandon Pillar is taking a flu night tonight. Martian, you had your Send stocks, and they were flu-like symptoms tonight. How'd you see this one develop?
Yeah, the Sens just seemed like they were a step behind basically the entire night, Ross, right from the get-go on this one. And they just didn't have their legs. And I think you could kind of look at a few guys there. Timmy Stützle for sure looked like a shell of himself. And there was a lot of other guys too, I think just didn't have their game tonight. And it was eerily similar to last night, I think, too, Ross. I think I know I missed that game, but just based on what I heard and everything that we saw last night, they kind of got a little bit of a downward trend here going right now, and they just can't let these bad habits continue to creep into their game here.
4 losses in their last 5 games now, but somehow still sit in a playoff spot. Jack, there's been a lot of deliberation in the chat. Is this a vent cast, a fine cast, a forget about it cast? Where are you at with after this team's performance tonight and over this last 5 games?
I'm going to call it a wary cast. I'm bringing out a new word. I think it's shown a little bit of, like Martian said, some habits maybe that are creeping into their game here. The reason I'm not, super worried after that, it's not a complete vent cast. There are some reasons we can vent, but it's not a complete vent cast for, we talked about it. It's kind of the flu game for, it feels like half the team. As long as we know what's going around with a few guys and it's including your best player up front, you can assume, especially like they're on the road, that this is spreading like wildfire. They've been together for a long time now. This is the longest part of the road trip. So again, like just knowing that, and then also the schedule alone, like we could get into it later. I know it's been covered. This road trip's a gauntlet, all the back-to-backs, the teams they played, they're 4-4 on the road trip, wrap it up in Detroit. So I don't know, man. Like it's a hard one to break down, to be honest, but maybe it's a bit of a big picture thing because things have slipped since that 6-game heater.
And they're now going home to Ottawa from St. Louis tonight. They will wake up in their own beds tomorrow, have a couple days at home before flying to Detroit, where they will wrap up this road trip on Tuesday night. Martian, if I had told you they were 4-4 after the first 8 games, you'd probably be like, whoa, okay, nice. But the way you started, it now feels like a huge step back.
Yeah, if I didn't know how they started, then I would definitely think differently. I think you're right, Ross. I think at the beginning of this road trip, we all looked at it and said, coming out of this thing, 500 or 1 game above 500 in this road trip, we'd take that. And especially without having Linus Ullmark as well for the majority of this trip. I think he was maybe in the first 1 or 2 games there. And then, he didn't even go on the road trip at all, did he? So, I mean,
the second half, because they came home for Christmas.
Home in the middle.
Funny enough, in games that Linus Ullmark played all of it, the Sens are 2-0 on this road trip. Lalime had the game in Vancouver, and then Ullmark got hurt after the first period in Edmonton. They lose that game, and that's 5 games ago. So they've lost 4 to 5 games since Ullmark got hurt.
Yeah, I'm not trying to make excuses either for this team. You got to be able to play through some things, but you're missing your starting goalie. You got a rookie goalie, and you were missing your backup as well. Let's not forget Forsberg got hurt as well. He's been playing not great, so maybe him being out was kind of a good thing for this team with the way Levi Merelainen ended up playing. But your starting goalie's out. You got a little bit of a flu bug in the room, it seems like, and then this schedule, like Jack pointed out, it's been tough. The World Juniors got to take over the Sens barn. They got to go on this lengthy road trip. I know they've managed to stop back at home a couple times in the middle of this road trip, but that's still not perfect, Ross. That's a lot of flying. That's a lot of travel. That's a lot of time for the boys. I'm sure they're ready for this road trip to end, as much as they seem to enjoy each other off the ice. When you're with your teammates that much, you're going to miss your families as well. I think a lot of these guys have young families. So the road trip, it might have started off pretty fun, and maybe that's why they were playing better. But I think at this point, these guys are just waiting for a home game here to get back to Ottawa.
Spin zone it should almost feel like a 1-game road trip to Detroit. After it's an easy flight, they'll get there, they'll sleep, they'll play, they'll get home, but the schedule gets worse after that. Let's cover that a little bit later, because there was a game on the ice, despite what Sens fans would not like to remember of this game. And the scoring started 7.5 minutes in. Braden Shen on a breakaway backhand. It's in the back of the net. And then at the end of the period, with less than 5 minutes left, Brandon Saad just outraces Nick Jensen and makes another move. So 2-0 after the first period, both on breakaways where they go backhand. Saad's was a more traditional, where he had all day and was coming in with speed, whereas Shen's goal was just, I don't know. It's a breakaway. You don't want to blame the goalie, but you want your goalie to make one of those two big saves early in the game to give your team on the road some confidence that you can rely on the guy back there. Senators got outshot 8-6 in that first period. Then in the second, it was Brandon Saad, his second of what would eventually be a hat trick. This one was a little shot from 15 feet out, not the best goal against. And in the third period, he has all time and day with less than 2 minutes left in this game. So Brandon Saad, who had gone goalless in his last 19 games, gets a hat trick against the Ottawa Senators. It just felt like insult to injury, didn't it, Jack?
A little bit, man. Yeah. And especially just scoring the hat trick that late in the game after that play. What was it, with less than 2 minutes left in the third period? And the hats are raining down. Like, that's insult to injury right there. Salt in the wound for the Sens. And for Forsberg, man, I mean, can't talk about this game without talking about Anton Forsberg. His return to the lineup just hasn't been a good season from Anton Forsberg. And I know that, the breakaway goals, if this game was tight, 2-0 down to the wire, I'm not looking at the goalie when you get, what did they have in the first period there, Ross? 6 shots, is what you mentioned?
Yeah, and they got outshot 8-6 in the first, and then they were sitting at, I believe, 8 shots in the game midway through the second.
And you could argue the game was over by the time they started to turn it on a little bit. And yeah, you never know if the bounce goes in. Shabbat's goal, if that counts, maybe it's a different third period, but they didn't have the legs. It didn't look like they were going to come back. But still, Forsberg did not put them in a position to win. Like, I'm not going to blame them on those breakaways, because they're breakaways, and they had full control in the offensive zone on both of them. So that's more on the players to me. But that third goal cannot go in. You could argue the fourth goal can't go in, but the game's over at that point. So just hasn't been good enough from Anton Forsberg. And I think the play of Lalime, who's been solid as a rookie, he's played 5 games, he's 22 years old, has really, amplified to me anyway, how poor Forsberg's playing, on top of how good Linus Ullmark's been. He's not putting them in a position to win games.
No, he's not. Martian, what's your take on the goaltending in Ottawa right now, as long as Linus Ullmark is sidelined with this injury?
Yeah, it doesn't give me a ton of confidence, I'll tell you that for sure. I mean, Levi Maralainen is a rookie still, so he's been playing great for them. And I look at Anton Forsberg tonight, guys. Those 5 whole goals. I mean, the first 2, I know they're breakaways, like we said, but they're both very similar type goals. You think you want to be able to stop. Ross, you said it. You want to be able to stop at least one of the 2 of those. If that's like a shootout, 2 for 2 on the shootout, that's not perfect from the goalie on 2 very similar moves. And pretty short, in short order, those 2 came pretty quick behind each other. And I just don't like what I'm seeing either, boys. I know he hasn't really been the same since that double knee surgery he had at the end of last season there, but. For me,
2 seasons ago, dude, like this is like, I get it that it can linger, but like this is who he is now.
Yeah, I mean he's getting up there in age too. I mean he's not a spring chicken anymore. I think he's definitely expendable, and like Jack said, he's not giving the team a chance to win. I think he can find somebody who can, and I think once Ullmark comes back, he might be shown the door, or whatever it may be, waived, or you never know. I'm not saying that's for sure something that's going to happen, but I think that, it's something that should be explored. That goaltending, that backup goaltending situation is rough. And if Linus Ullmark can't be healthy consistently, which so far he hasn't been able to be, I'm majorly concerned with what's going on in the crease, because we've seen what this team looks like when they get good goaltending. They just play with more confidence. They look better. So I'm looking for that to improve, hopefully sooner rather than later. Otherwise, we're in deep water, because the goaltending needs to be good for this team to have success.
I have some silver lining. The word on Ullmark before this road trip was he's not going to be on this road trip. If they're going home, maybe he gets with them to Detroit. So that's my spin zone for tonight. We can still break down this goaltending situation, because you're right, Martian. Like, even when Ullmark's back, he hasn't been healthy for long enough stretches. I know he was literally like the best goalie in the month of the month. Cannot believe he didn't win that, by the way, over Jacob Markstrom. Ridiculous. Linus Ullmark was the best goalie in the NHL last month, but he was injured at the beginning of the year, wasn't himself, or whatever you want to call it, then becomes the Vezina caliber goalie we wanted. And now he's been out for the last 5 games, which has been a more than 5 game stretch. It's been almost 2 weeks now. It was Christmas. It was the December 22nd that he bowed out. So I'm concerned about his health for sure, and what's going on. The lack of, like, we don't really know. It just kind of, I thought it was precautionary,
weird, right?
And he hasn't played since December 22nd now. Like, didn't it go on a road trip? They could have flown him out like they did with Artem Zub. So I think it's weird. I just want to call it that. It's been weird. I don't think it's been a normal injury, just the way it's been handled, but he might be back. And if he's back and playing the way he was, I want to ask questions.
Yeah.
And
I think just the way he left, and then like they had a few days off. I thought for sure he'd be going on this road trip, just with the way the injury went down. It just didn't look like anything serious. There was nothing that obviously happened to him.
Yeah.
Left in the intermission, and then we never saw him again for, it's been 10 days now. We haven't seen this guy. So, and
we don't have to dive into Ullmark because he didn't play tonight. He hasn't been playing, obviously, but him not playing is I think directly like they're 1-4 since he left, and he's their best player. So you have to talk about it. I just want to mention, because Thatcher Demko got hurt, I think it was last night for the Canucks. You saw what happened to him. But with Ullmark, nothing. I didn't see anything. I'm getting caught up on a bunch of Sens news here. I've been off the Postcast for a little while. Been spread out in between. So it just feels like it's all been the same kind of game, though. And it's kind of gotten away from the Sens. And I think it goes back to the Ullmark injury for me, which is why we're talking about Forsberg.
Now, but with Forsberg, so I'm totally in line with you guys that Merilainen's been the better goalie. But if you're a general manager or an organization, if Ullmark's not healthy, you're not going to run 2 rookies. So the talk about whether it's waivers for Forsberg, if you think he could clear, I mean, there was some talk that Carolina was interested in him. Would someone pluck him off at full salary, 2.75 for the rest of this year? That's another question. But unless you have a different route to get another veteran in, I don't think that the Ottawa Senators are just going to let Forsberg walk and have a 22-year-old with 5 or 6 games of NHL experience as the entire tandem for the rest of the year. Because Sogard, I mean, tonight again, you can't play Sogard in NHL games right now. You just can't do it. So that leaves you a little bit hogtied right now, and I just don't know where Ottawa goes. They need Linus Ullmark so badly that without him, it's a bit of a mess right now.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, for sure. They would need Ullmark to be back for them to move on from Forsberg.
But even without, just knowing that he's now missed 2 different stretches with injury, are you going to risk having a 22-year-old as your only other option?
My only point.
I probably wouldn't. Yeah, it's just tough.
But it's tough. Like, it's risky having a 22-year-old there, but the experience thing, he's got to get it at some point. And these guys are just going to, hopefully keep progressing as a team. So eventually he's going to have to get thrown to the wolves. And I look at what was the schedule he's played in his career so far. It's been been really hard. So ideally, if Ullmark's in net there, you can protect Levi Merilainen a little bit more. Give him the better matchups, because when Ullmark's at his best, which he was at that stretch, you're playing him every night unless it's a back-to-back.
Yeah, and we've got Brandon, not Pillsy. We've got another Brandon ready to join us here, boots on the ground. And this is a wild story we're going to get to, because he's been on this road trip through thick and thin. We'll get to that in just a minute. First, let me remind you the Postcast is always brought to you by the Glebe Central Pub, your pub in the heart of the Glebe, 779 Bank Street. Make sure you let them know that Locked On Senator sent you when you head to 779 Bank Street on Sens game days. You will get 10% off your order by letting them know that you're a listener of LOSP. Make sure to check out their website too, GlebCentralPub.com. That's where you'll be able to find the $17 round trip tickets. Get your golden ticket and head to the CTC to watch the Ottawa Senators when they come finally back at home next Thursday against the Buffalo Sabres. They've got all sorts of shuttles going in the month of January and beyond. So head to where the vibes are free. That's the GCP, 779 Bank Street, and let them know that Locked On Senators sent you. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. The NFL playoffs are almost here. It's never too late to get in on the action. Right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits. So make sure to get to FanDuel right now and join today. That's FanDuel.com and your chance at $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits. I know I was all over the Sens props tonight. I really got torched, but I also had some shooting props. And Shane Pinto had over 2.5 shots, so that means I am still a loser, but not as bad as it could have been because I'm on FanDuel and I'm making every moment more. It's the official sports betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, welcome back to the Postcast. I'm Ross Levitan alongside Lalime's Martian and Jack Richardson. Let's head to St. Louis, Missouri, where we find Brandon. What's up, Brandon? What's the feeling there? That's a tough one to watch tonight.
Yeah, boys, it was definitely tough. Little chilly, feels a little bit chilly after that result. You can go with it's a sad night. We're singing the blues, whatever one you want to go with. It was a tough one. Yeah.
You know you made it onto TSN tonight, fella?
I was just gonna say that. Yeah,
I did actually. I saw it on Twitter, and then actually the guy next to me said he sent me. He had about 4 different pictures of that what you're showing right there, and he was kind enough to text me them. So. Yeah, he was having a good laugh about that too.
Hey, you got a gift for the rest of the season whenever things don't go the Sens' way, hey?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Hopefully we won't have to use that too often.
No, hopefully not, man. Dude, you were so – because they showed you after the goal went in too, and you were fired up, and then all of a sudden it got taken away. Were you thinking that was going to be the TSN turning point tonight?
With what, 38 seconds left, 36 seconds left in the period, something like that? Like that's it right there. That's – in a nutshell, potentially the game, right? That's 3-1 going into the third. Some momentum on our side, finally, potentially. Yeah, that was a TSN turning point, I think for sure.
Oh, brutal, man! You've been on quite the run though right now, and everybody can follow him on Twitter, Brandon Heemer. And look, they're fired up in Missouri after that performance, and rightfully so. But this isn't your first game on the road trip. Tell us where the inspiration went and what your trips entailed.
Yeah, it's been kind of crazy. So obviously, originally born in Ottawa, big Ottawa fan, but currently live out in Calgary. Been there for 2.5 years. So every Christmas break, I try and catch a couple games on the road. I would love to get to every arena. After this trip, I'm about halfway done, 17 arenas done. So, yeah, this year I got lucky. Before the break, we were in Calgary, so saw them play in Calgary, and then made the trek up to Edmonton and watched them there. And then I was off to Winnipeg after the Christmas break. Saw you guys there in Winnipeg, saw you there in Winnipeg, obviously, and then off to Minnesota, early flight because it was back-to-back. Those are tough. And then after that,
tough on the fans too, eh, Brandon?
Oh, it's brutal on the fans. Why couldn't I just tag along with them, right? Like, come on. But yeah, so then off to Dallas. Obviously, had a 4 days there, New Year's Eve, and nice warm weather. Couldn't really complain about that. And then again, another early flight for these back-to-backs, and another 4 new arenas checked off the list, which was pretty cool. But would have liked a couple more wins for sure.
So the lore behind that GIF now is not even just the one game in St. Louis. You've been witnessing kind of like what we've been talking about here, Brandon. They're falling off a little bit here. What have you seen, and maybe what you see tonight, maybe? But it's kind of incredible that you were there for the high of the high and kind of watch this kind of slip off the rails a little bit. We were talking about that just before getting you in here.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I don't know what the last 2 days kind of entailed after that New Year's break or New Year's Eve there, New Year's Day turned into 2025, and it just hasn't seemed like the same team the last couple games. I know I've read some things about maybe the flu bug going through and whatnot, but I know a lot of blame gets always tossed on Forsey, and we play a little bit better in front of Linus, but even Marilyn has been playing great. We didn't really play well in front of him in Dallas either. So I think the last couple of games we've seen the juggle lines kind of try to spread some of that wealth out, and the big guys just. Some days you need your big guys to really step up, and I think someone like Greg has played great. He didn't score obviously tonight; nobody did, but he had 3 games in a row with goals. He was been driving it, but Timmy's been fighting the puck, and it was good to get Zub back. But yeah, it's just been tough the last couple of games. Not really sure what's going on, but coming into this 9-game extended road trip, if we pull out a win in Detroit next, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's 5-4 on the road trip. Like,
Yep, they're 4-4
going into
right
that
now.
road trip. You say we're going to go 5-4. You take that all day, and worst case scenario, that's the biggest game of the road trip in my opinion, because it's divisional foe, it's Eastern Conference foe, it's all that stuff where the rest of it's been West Coast. So hopefully we can sort it out for that one in Detroit, and then get some home cooking, get boys back in their own beds, and get some time. I really was expecting Brady to kind of step up tonight. He met with his family afterwards. Big crew there. Kind of a homecoming for him. But I don't know what's really going on the last 2 days. A little disappointing.
Are you tired from 6 straight games? I know you had a little break, but are you gassed?
I am gassed. I'm toast. The good thing is it's been once you left Calgary, it's been one time zone, so I haven't had to do the whole, Calgary, Seattle, Edmonton, Vancouver, whatever that craziness was. Seattle, Calgary, Vancouver, Edmonton. But yeah, it's that's why I'm flying home tomorrow. I get a day before. Got to get back to work on Monday, so hopefully I can catch some rest on Sunday.
Well, man, I'm so glad we got to catch up with you. We're going to leave you with probably the most impossible question. You're going to lead us off with our Send Central standout tonight. Was there anybody that was worthy of a standout nomination tonight?
That's a real tough one based on the performance. I mentioned him earlier. I'm going to go with Greg again. He, maybe that's a little bit towards the last couple games. Got a soft spot for him. He was my first ever signed jersey, so I'm going to give the nod to him. Good Lethbridge boy, just south of Calgary. So that's my guy for tonight.
Love that. All right, Brandon, really appreciate you coming on and sharing your experience. Actually, I got one last one. What was the best city and best atmosphere of all the rinks that you got to go to?
Can I piggyback on that too? Who had the nicest fans? I don't care about the media. Who is the nicest to the Ottawa Senators? Who's a team that we should kind of cheer for? These are all Western teams. We don't really care how they do now from going on out. Who had the nicest fans? Who had the nicest thing to say about Ottawa?
Honestly, there's an older lady, sweetheart of a lady on the train in Dallas. We rode the training together, and she said one of her favorite places to ever watch a hockey game was in Ottawa.
Okay.
She absolutely loved it out there. She's checked off a lot of boxes in terms of arenas, but she didn't have enough nice things to say about Ottawa and just the town. And she was a little upset the canal wasn't frozen when she was there in December, whenever she went. But so she was a real sweetheart. The people around me were pretty nice too. So, Dallas fan wise, even though the St. Louis guys were pretty nice next to me today, got to give the nod to Dallas.
Okay.
And then, city wise, I'd probably go again Dallas. But to be fair, I spent 4 days there. Everywhere else was kind of, 24 hours. Winnipeg was nice. First time I've ever been to Winnipeg. I know some people might not say that a whole lot, but Ross hooked me up with a good spot to hit up before the game. So that was a good area too. I like that. Yeah. Not a bad city in the bunch, not a bad set of fans, but
no, we did the Minnesota trip last year too. The rink's in a nice spot. Yeah. It's almost like an old European type town there.
Yeah, no, it's in a real nice spot in
St. Paul,
in that area. Yeah, I liked it a lot, and I'm starting to realize more and more that not all the rinks are like Ottawa, where the rink is built. Most of these rinks are kind of built a little bit underground, not to the extent of Seattle, where it's way in the ground, but these other ones are nice little setups. Dallas was a totally different type of rink too. It didn't even look like a hockey rink, just looked like a big building. But yeah, definitely some nice barns for sure on this trip.
Awesome, Brandon. Go get some rest, brother. Appreciate all the insight, man. And we already tagged here. Everyone should be following you on Twitter. And we look forward to more Sens takes down the rest of the season. So thanks for doing this, man.
Anytime, boys. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
All right, there goes Brandon after watching the Sens get shut out. He's in pretty good mood, all things considered, eh, Martian?
Yeah, better mood than I would be in if I just watched 6 games of that last bit of road trip there. And yeah, he's in high spirits. So he must be having fun. So, I mean, that's what it's all about at the end of the day as a fan. You just want to make sure you're having fun watching your team. So good for Brandon for being in high spirits after this one, especially. That boy's like, I mean, losing 4-0, being on the road like that for this guy, it can't be easy. So good for him. Good appearance. Good post-game appearance there. Another good one.
Dude, we keep nailing these, and it's a credit to the Ottawa Senators fan base, A, for traveling well, and 2, for showing the passion they have for this team. We might be setting a Sens Central record for least amount of minutes talking about the actual game that we just witnessed, but for good reason. And we'll get right back to that in a moment. But first, let me tell you about Rocket Money. Rocket Money is actually one of the most convenient and necessary tools available to mankind. Did you know that Rocket Money helps you find any subscriptions that you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? Man, that sucks. It's happened to me before. I had a few subscriptions and Rocket Money made it easy to track them down and save me some money. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel these unwanted subscriptions, monitor your spending, and help lower your bills so you can grow your savings and have trips like Brandon going all across the North American soil looking at Ottawa Senators games. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, welcome back to the Postcast. I'm Ross Levitan. Lalime's Martian here. Jack Richardson here. You can find their Twitters in the bio below the show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. A rare weekend without a game for the Ottawa Senators. It will be the first Saturday without an Ottawa Senators game since October 26th, boys. It's been a long time without having a Senators game on a Saturday night, but we got lots of storylines to get to in this game. We already had a Sen Central standout presented by the Glebe Central Pub from Brandon. He went with Ridley Gregg. Jack, I'll give you the best opportunity here with number 2.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm going to go with the captain. I thought it was the first period for me mostly. I thought he brought some jam. I've really liked that line, to be honest, in these games. Obviously, last night with that quick shift, they scored 2. Ridley Gregg's looked really comfortable, I think, lately, which is helping. And I like that Brandon gave him a shout out. But yeah, I think Brady was pretty candid last night in what he said about like an unacceptable game, which makes it a little bit weird, maybe with, considering people might have the flu, but I don't know. I mean, I liked his comments and I thought he backed it up, at least in the first. He put them in some spots to win. I thought that penalty on Joseph was soft. I didn't think that was a good call by the refs. So I don't really think he says 2-minute penalty for cross-checking in the first, but I didn't really think that was a deserving penalty. But I don't know. You gotta pick something here. And I thought the captain had his legs early.
Martian, go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. That would have been my standout too. I think, he's got his family in the building too, there with the Chuck Solid being from St. Louis. So I think he was one of the only guys maybe you can point to and say for sure, like, he doesn't have the flu. He's feeling pretty good out there. He had his legs tonight. So I like that standout from you. I'm going to go a little bit off the board here. I'm going to go with my big boy here, Tyler Kleven. I thought Kleven had a decent game tonight. One of the few defensemen who comes away from this one without being a minus on the score sheet. So it's always good when you're not out there for any goals against. I thought he was jumping into the play nicely at times, especially towards the end of the game when it looked like maybe things were a little out of hand. You could tell he was trying to do something out there, and that's what you're looking for out of him. 3 block shots, 2 hits, and he was, I thought, a pretty solid defender there tonight. A good 17-27 on ice from Tyler Kleven, and he's going to be my standout on this one, Ross.
You guys are giving me absolute scraps because I agree with you two, and I agree with Brandon as well with Ridley Gregg, who was throwing his body around. I believe a team high 4 hits for Ridley Gregg, which is true. in this game. I'll go with all the fans, all 150 you guys rocking with us after this game. It's the least we could do because this game just sucked flat out top to bottom. I would have gone with Nick Cousins, who analytically had the best night, but an offside to take away a goal and a missed finish on what would have been a sure goal where it was a slap shot dump in from Travis Hamonic, bounced right in front. He deked out the goalie, but he just couldn't put it home. So two big minuses on the scoring chance side, I should say. But yeah, I'm going with the fans for riding and dying with us after every Ottawa Senators game here on LOSP. Okay, that covers the game. I don't really care to get too far into it, except I do want to hear from head coach Travis Green. So let's play that. We'll come back with what's on Jack and Martian's mind, bigger picture with the Ottawa Senators. But here's head coach Travis Green after game 8 of a 9-game road trip. The Ottawa Senators now coming home to prepare for their final game where they'll fly back out to Detroit for a game on Tuesday. Here's the coach, courtesy of the Ottawa Senators YouTube page. You can go there and also hear from Thomas Chabot and Drake Batherson. Here's the head coach.
I thought obviously the first period we actually did some good things for a road period and it was a little unfortunate. I thought that we were down 2-0. Don't like the fact that we gave up the 2 breakaways, but other than those 2 chances, we didn't give up a whole lot. I thought when they got the 3rd goal, it took a little steam out of maybe our psyche a little bit, and we didn't create enough either tonight.
Just a lot of goal didn't help either, right?
No, but it was offside.
Yeah. It was on the outside. Can we underestimate mental fatigue after a long trip like this?
Yeah, I'm not going to use that as an excuse. I didn't. Offensively, we got to, they're top guys. Scored. They got 4 out of them, and we got to find a way to get some more offense out of our group. We're playing well defensively, but we've got to create more.
Good to get back home after a trip like this where, yes, out of the past 8 games, you come out 500, but now back home for a little bit before heading back to Detroit?
Yeah, it'll be good to get a couple practices under our belt and get back on the road for another game.
All right, very candid and quick from the head coach, Travis Green, in this one here as we are continuing on with the postcast. But, boys, that was it was ugly, and nobody really cares to talk about that. It's more big picture, and Linus Ullmark's health is at the very top. Jack, do you think we kind of underestimated the loss of Michael Amadio as well as helping add some depth and layers to this offense?
We did, and I really like what Travis Green said there. He said the top guys for the Blues got it done. I don't know if Brandon Saad is one of their top players. He just alluded to that.
He's paid like one. I think he's making $5 or $6 million, but he again didn't score in 19 games.
In the same sentence, the reason I'm bringing it up is because in the same sentence he said we need to find a way to score, and dig deep. Like he's talking about the top guys on this team. He's talking about the big boys, and I think the loss of Michael Amadio. Pinto, Amadio, and Cousins was probably their best all-around line during the win streak. I don't think that's outrageous to say. Tkachuk got all the overtime winners. It was great. He was clutch. But I feel like consistently every game, at least when they were playing well. So my point is with him gone now, that's gone. So the lines have been mixed up. Pinto and Greg look like they're taking strides, which is good. But up front, you've got Tkachuk, Stützle, Norris, Batherson, Giroux I'll throw in there too. Just some guys who I think you're getting some production, like they're still elite, getting point. Maybe, that Minnesota game was great, but they need to, in these big games on the road against good teams, like you're going to go in the playoffs. If you're going to make it, you're going to have to play these road games. So I think that's a message to his top guys. That's how I saw it. And I think that's bigger picture for me. And I'm including Chabot and Sanderson in that, just basically the boys who are paid to be big time players. And it's kind of where you would like a goal there from Josh Norris or even from Sanderson. I know Chabot did score, but Martian, that's just kind of how I felt like that's what that was. And he understands it back to back, all of that, but just needs more from the big boys.
Yeah, definitely. And there's got to be a little bit of frustration there as a coach. You're watching these guys, you know what they're capable of, and then they come out there and they're just not able to finish their chances. And there was one name there that you didn't mention, and that was Adam Gaudette. And this guy's gone ice cold now all of a sudden in this season. I know he's not paid like a top scorer, but he's been a guy who's been contributing for a little while here, especially at the start of the season. 11 straight games with 0 goals and just 2 points, and you're playing with Timmy Stützle. I mean, when's it time to get him off that line? Because for me, that's just not going to cut it. And then the other guy too, who's one of those guys we look at as a goal scorer, is Josh Norris, and I know he got a good goal the other night, and that's great. But there's been parts of his game that I think a lot of people haven't been enjoying, and I think the defensive side of things is definitely part of that. I think it's just like all overall compete level has not been there. I don't remember the last time I've seen this guy win a puck battle. I'd like to see him kind of try to get himself in the mix a little bit more. He did a little bit tonight. I can't remember who it was he was kind of jousting with in front of the net, but it was, it's nice to get, see him try to engage in the game a little bit more. I'd like to just see a ton more of that from Josh Norris, because right now, he's a ghost. So Josh Norris is the other guy I would point to as a guy who just needs to start scoring more.
Well, I've got good news. I've got good news for Josh Norris. He's playing against the Detroit Red Wings, his home state team, and he's got 7 goals and 10 points in 9 career games against Detroit. So wouldn't that be just what the doctor orders if he comes out and puts on a clinic like he has in the past? His last even strength goal was against the Red Wings, if I'm not mistaken, which is that 2-1 game where he scored both goals. He was awesome in that game, and he needs more of it. And I know there's some talk that the grinders, the depth guys aren't really the ones who are going to make or break it. I'd argue that Jack made a great point that Cousins, Pinto, and Amadio line was their most consistent through the win streak. You need 3 good lines to win in this league consistently, and I think it's been a big hole. And now you're looking at the top 6, and how is Tim Stützle going to get guys to play with? The Gaudette move was good in a small sample size, and it worked that San Jose game. They don't win that without Gaudette tipping in a Stützle centering pass late in the third period when they're getting dominated. But they need a guy to be a top 6 contributor, and they signed him. They thought they signed him, but David Perron has been unavailable, and until he's back too, and who knows what's going on with him, they're going to be looking for one of these depth guys to play above their pay scale and get them some offense, because this team is 8th in the league in shots on goal per game, and now back-to-back games they get 20 or less. 20 tonight, 13 or 12 the other night. 12 the other night. It's just not going to cut it. So they need to figure out a way to generate more offense. And like Brandon told us, thank goodness that these 4 to 5 losses were against Western teams, because nobody in the Eastern Conference wants it right now. You got Tampa, losers of 2 in a row. Ottawa, losers of 2 in a row and 4 of 5. Boston's lost back-to-back games. Columbus, Philly, Montreal, all losers of their last game. And Pittsburgh scored late to get 1 point tonight, but they lost as well. So that's the silver lining in all this for me, is despite how bad Ottawa's been, everybody else in the Eastern Conference that's relevant in this discussion of who's going to make playoffs and who's not, they're all sucking right now too. So the most important game of this road trip is the next one, is the game in Detroit, and they better regroup, because I'll say it right now, it's a must-win game against Detroit. You can't allow the Detroit Red Wings to beat you after what Ottawa's gone through the last month of ups and downs. Like, are you going to stamp the must-win on this one, Martian?
Yeah, I'm right there with you, buddy. Absolutely. So, they're going to go home. They're going to maybe try to hit the reset button here, and then they got to go into Detroit and win this one. It's just crazy to me that they're still in this playoff spot at the end of this road trip, despite how they're playing. Being in that spot, that's probably the goal at the end of this thing, obviously, is just to maintain that spot as long as you can. So it's a war of attrition right now in that, that area of the Eastern Conference. They need to just stick with it, and hopefully they can just get back to the way they were playing before, get their starting goalie back, and things will just start to improve from there. It's been a couple bad games in a row. You can't lose 3 bad ones in a row. I think you look at your 3 worst losses of the season possibly in a row would be not perfect for this team with what our expectations are of them right now. So they need to get going. And
look, it's too bad. It's unfortunate, but they will have a favorable schedule down the stretch. So they just have to continue to get, I'd say every 10 game sample, they're still going to have to continue to rack up points. Thank goodness this road trip is almost to an end. These time zone games and everything, like how electric is it going to feel? I know it's Buffalo on a Thursday night, but just the home crowd, they better bring out Lyndon Slewage for that one. Like, I just can't wait to see this team play back at home. Like, they're 10-6-1 at home this year. They're 2 games below 500 on the road, and this has been just a grit grinder of a road trip for the Ottawa Senators. So I'm glad they get to go home, that they're not just going straight to Detroit and having to play again. Detroit's in Winnipeg tomorrow. That's a tough game for them. Then they'll come home on Sunday. Both teams will be rested and ready to go for Tuesday night. Other games tomorrow that we're paying attention to, because this will be the last LOSP until Monday. And on Monday, by the way, we will have the guys from Locked On Red Wings on the show to discuss and debate the Ottawa Senators and Detroit Red Wings. That'll be a fun show to tune into. But boys, plug your nose. We're cheering for the Maple Leafs on Saturday night. Maple Leafs are taking on the Boston Bruins, and that's still the team that I'm looking at of teams that you need to be better than. And the Ottawa Senators need to be better than the Boston Bruins. So I hate to say it. I know it's early in the season. Some people probably disagreeing with me, saying F the Leafs no matter what. We'll figure it out beyond that. But I'm wanting Boston to collapse here, as they looked like they were going to do. They fired their coach. They're all of a sudden back to playing great hockey. But now 2 straight losses. It could be 3 if the Leafs get a win tomorrow night. We mentioned Detroit is in Winnipeg. Other games that matter, not so much because the Rangers are still far back, but they're in Washington, another tough game for them. St. Louis, all of a sudden, we're going to be looking for them to beat the Columbus Blue Jackets. Montreal lost tonight, but they've been playing good hockey. They're in Colorado. So, again, it's a tough game for them. Tampa's in LA. That's a tough game for them. Buffalo, they're not an issue, but they're in Vegas. Like, it's a gauntlet right now for a lot of Eastern Conference teams playing tough Western matchups, Jack. Like, Ottawa, as much as it sucks, like, they're not alone here in terms of teams that are kind of going up against tough opponents.
It's what they just went through, really, right? That stretch, which was broken up by Christmas and New Year's. It was Edmonton, Winnipeg, Minnesota, Dallas. It's a gauntlet of a schedule, and like, you mix the weird back-to-backs in there, losing your starting goalie. Like, you can obviously point to a lot of reasons why this is happening, but it's still happening. And some of these games have been there and been up for grabs for them. But, positive spin zone on that too, Ross. I'm not cheering for the Leafs, because the division is not, like, obviously it's Florida and Toronto kind of separating themselves at the top, but they're not really that far up. Like, they're also back and forth a lot. I know they had some more wins this week than the Sens did, obviously. I'm just saying it's still tight. If the Sens can get back to those winning ways, if Ullmark's back, you've got Detroit, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, who you can push further below you in the standings, make up some ground on Boston's game is in hand already. This will just add another one. So they can beat the Leafs. Just make it even tighter for the Atlantic, because the Sens are 4-0 against Boston, Florida, Toronto, and Tampa this season. We got to remember that. I know it was early, but they did it. They beat all 4. They're 4-0 against the 4 teams they're trying to catch. That's a very positive spin zone. Obviously, I don't know if people really want to think that positively right now, but just something to consider big picture wise.
Well, to jump on that wagon, Linus Ullmark's 8-0-1 in his last 9 results.
There you go. And I think just mentality wise too, these guys can't be looking at the standings and looking at all these teams that are below them, looking to catch them. I think you guys are onto something there. They got to be looking at the Bruins and being like, that's the team we need to catch right now. So if they just continue to focus on the guys who are ahead of them in the standings, they don't need to worry too much about the guys below them, because if they're gaining ground on the teams that are above them, then good things are going to happen for them. They don't have to worry about those teams below them. So I think mentality wise, we just got to keep looking up here, guys. We just got to keep looking up.
All right. I like this positivity to head into the weekend. Hope everybody has a safe and happy first weekend of the new year. This road trip has, and like the stops and starts and holidays, everything. What day is it? Today's Friday. We'll have our next show on Monday. Martian, any final thoughts you want to leave the people with heading into the weekend? You look forward to the Team Canada game tomorrow? Oh, wait.
Oh, yeah, that was a tough one for me last night too, being there. That was tough to watch. Maybe we won't get too into that.
No, that's a can
I'm
of
sure
worms.
you guys talked about it last night on the Postcast while it was still
Oh.
fresh, or maybe today's episode. But
Just
yeah,
gross.
no, it's obviously, that's disappointing. But no, for me, I think, I can't remember who the quote came from. Maybe Travis Green. He said you just can't get too high and you can't get too low when things are bad. So I think they got to stay steady here. Take a page out of the GM book, Steady Steve Staios, just keep maintaining where they're at, and hopefully do well enough to get themselves into the playoffs in the long run. It's just a little speed bump, guys. Just a little speed bump. That's the way I'm looking at it. I'm going full positive mode right now. I know Pilsy's not here with his panic button, but if he was, I'm sure he would say it's deep in the drawer right now, and things are going to be just okay.
So are you rescinding your must-win game on Tuesday then? It feels like one game shouldn't make or break.
No, I mean, I'm not going to say, well, no, I want them to win that game. It's an important game in the schedule, Ross. So I think
it's a very important game.
It's a loose must win. A loose must win. Very important.
Can't lose
game.
That's spin zone. I like that. Can't lose to Detroit. It's a divisional game. All these Western games are out of the way now. Let's get back into the Eastern Conference.
But they lost tonight, and our guy Brandon Heemer was in attendance. This is a gif of all time right here. I'm so glad, because we had organized with Brandon to come on the show before that. So when he was on, I was like, I got to make sure it's the same dude. But when he came on, I saw it was a white jersey, and obviously it looks the same. This was an hour ago. I was like, okay, we got to bring this up to him. This is an all-time gift. Shout out to Senator on Twitter. Great follow. You can find him for that one. We'll be using that, hopefully not too often though.
He's a beauty, and like the Sens, I don't want to give him free ideas here, but like you should consult him. He's seen so many opposing rinks from a fan's perspective for the new arena downtown. Maybe he's got something to say. He's seen all these cool barns. Like, he's been to 17 now as a fan. It's hard to do, man. And as a Sens fan, anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. I wanted to kind of segue that though. My final thoughts, Ross. I got World Juniors thoughts, but it's more about the staff at the Canadian Tire Center have been working basically double headers for the last week and a half over the holidays. And, they're not on a road trip. Usually when the Sens go away on the road, they don't really have, hockey games to do. They're funneling thousands of people in and out of there all day. I was lucky enough to be there too, Martian, last night. Just some last minute tickets. And you can really see like they're grinding. There's a lot more staff, I noticed, than in Sens games. And I feel like they deserve a shout out, because I think is gold medal game on Sunday or Monday, but it's wrapping up in the next few days. Who cares? Yeah, but it was. I just felt like the staff has not been working. It hasn't been on a holiday here on the road trip. So
that's a great call out. That's a really good call out, I think, Jack. Yeah.
Kevin Heeman was one of them. Kevin's been doing all the ups and downs in the elevator.
Exactly.
Did you see him at the rink, Martian?
I did. Yeah, I bumped right into him. Yeah, Kevin's been in there. He's been working. I'm not sure if he's been at every single game, but he's getting in the mix there for sure. He has his guy. He's carrying his weight. So Kevin's in there too. But yeah, you can see in the staff size, I think, Jack. They've been grinding. Like you said. So good call out, good shout out. Just give it up for those guys. They've been doing a great job.
Yeah, love that. Can't wait to step foot back in the CTC. We're starting to get itchy planning our next trip to the CTC. All right. Appreciate everybody for being a part of the Postcast with us. For my friends, Lalime's Martian and Jack Richardson, both of whom you can find on social media through the link below. I'm Ross Levitan. Let's all tweet at Pilsy. Tweet at Brandon Pillar1. Get well soon, buddy. He's going to be in great spirits when we get back on Monday's Locked On Senators. Ottawa loses 4-0 to St. Louis in a game we really didn't talk a whole lot about because the Sens didn't give us a whole lot to talk about. Love the GSGs in the chat. Let's keep that rolling into a very great weekend. Rest, recover, and rejuvenate, because Tuesday is going to be all systems go. We will be here in the Postcast after that game, and we'll chat to you on Monday's Locked On Senators with a crossover with our friends from Locked On Red Wings. For more, you can check us out on Twitter at Sens Central, and shout out to the Glebe Central Pub for making the Postcast tick. Our friends at the Glebe Central Pub are at 779 Bank Street. That's it for us today. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.